So, in our little exploration of the history of TV, this one's probably been a while coming. Little House on the Prairie, one of those shows that, I just know the name, but being a young mid 40s whippersnapper, like I don't know if I ever, maybe I never saw it actually, because it might have been one of those things that I was flipping past as a kid and I just kept on a flipping, until I could find Transformers or something. So I know of it, but I've definitely never seen it. But I assume you're much more familiar than I am with Little House.
Yep, excellent show. It was produced by he stars in it too, Michael Landon, who was Little Joe on Bonanza.
Right.
And he went on to do other things, angel shows and all this stuff.
Well, I was going to say maybe again, just as the age group, that's what I most know him from is Highway to Heaven.
Highway to Heaven, exactly.
Which again, I just skipped past to look for the Smurfs.
Little House on the Prairies is very, very well done. It's based on Laura Ingalls Wilder, I think is her name, who was a gal who grew up in the Old West on the prairie and wrote stories about her childhood. Yeah, they turned it into a TV show that ran for a long, long time. And you see those kids as little kids, like the children of the family, the little small children. And then I think when the show ends, God, they're married and I probably have kids, but they'd be easily in their mid-20s by the time that show finishes. So the show grew with the children. They didn't replace the children and try to keep it as a young family. The whole family developed, aged out with the show. It's well done.
Yeah, that's another name, Laura Ingalls Wilder. Like I've heard her referenced, I don't know, I'm going to say conservatively 500 times in my life, but I just never knew who she was. I didn't know she was the Little House on the Prairie author. It's just surprising, these very basic things that most people know. And you only got to learn it once, and now I know that. But if you just never quite crosses your path, you just don't have a reason to actually know who these people are. I didn't know. It's like, oh, that's who that is.
As you kids were growing up too, it was probably more of a girl show than I mean, heck, you're watching Transformers and people bashing each other and killing each other and running over the people with supersonic machines and everything else.
Even Gem and the Holograms, as we learned, is not exactly the most feminine show of all time when we watch that.
Yeah, so I could see this show having been really popular with girl children. Some boy children would have liked it, but when you've got that competition of all that crazy wild violence going on too, what are you going to pick? You're going to follow the latter.
Yeah, that does seem to fit with. This is one of those shows that even though there's a lot of information about it, you could read about Little House all dang day if you wanted to. But I'll just give you the real brief details that I got here, which were Little House on the Prairie is an American Western historical drama television series loosely based on the book series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. The series is centered on the Ingalls family who live on a farm on Plum Creek near Walnut Grove, Minnesota. In the 1870s through the 1890s, there were 200 episodes and 5 specials that aired on NBC from 1974 to 1983. And basically the production of it seems to fall in line with what you were just saying. It was this TV producer, Ed Friendly, who noticed that his wife and his daughter both were reading those books. Apparently his one of the two read them every year, the same way nerds of my generation read Lord of the Rings every year. It was their Lord of the Rings. So he brought it to NBC, and they already had a deal with Michael Landon to produce stuff, and he'd already directed things. So they got him on board, and he agreed to star. And then I guess he kind of butted heads a bit with Ed Friendly because Ed Friendly wanted to make it just like the books, and Michael Landon thought for a long-running TV series it'd be better to change it. And the network went with Michael Landon because he's Michael freaking Landon. But Michael Landon also, one of the reasons why he agreed is because his wife and daughter also read the books. So that seems to be a common theme. And I guess to this day, there's still fans who wish that the show was more like the books. But it all feeds back because the show was so popular that then it got people to go read the books. So, it all worked out in the end. And what I've got is the first episode was like a made-for-TV movie that they did as a pilot. But then I think it kind of counts as the first episode. So it's like a big 90-minuter that we're going to watch first.
I think I saw that. I think that's when they arrive. They're on the wagon train, or they're on their own wagon train, and they arrive at what is going to be their farm. I think I've seen that one.
And then I've also got the very last episode from season 9 where Michael Landon actually left in season 8. So it should be a little interesting to see I mean, I always think of that 70s show. Oh man, how it went 1 year further than it should have gone because all the main cast already left and it was just awful. So I'm sure this won't be that bad, but I bet it'll be a lot worse once we get 9 seasons in and Michael Landon's gone. But we'll see, But they got to squeeze American TV. We always talk about that too with like how British TV gets in, gets out, has a nice quality product. American TV will hold on as long as it can. If you can get 23 seasons of Law and Order, then you're getting it.
Now, it's interesting when you said, okay, this is set in the 1870s in Minnesota, and yet we have been watching Wild West cowboy types riding around on the range and shooting buffalo and everything else, and yet this is the same time frame. And it's a family that establishes itself in a small community. So that was going on too in the 1870s. We always think of the Wild West as shoot 'em up, shoot 'em down, shoot 'em inside out or whatever. But not necessarily. There would have been people who were going to the West and settling who were just normal people setting up homestead.
It's interesting too that, this is earlier, quite a bit earlier, but that kind of thing kind of held on in a long time for America because the Waltons, wait, when is the Waltons set? It's after
Waltons
this, right?
is in the Depression, right. 1930s.
Because then even after that, do you remember that The Glass Castle, Jeanette Walls, where even her upbringing when she was a kid very much felt like a Little House Walton scenario, and that was even later than that. Like if you're in these like middle parts of America, it took a long time for society to get its roots.
For civilization to really establish itself.
Yeah. So the only other little thing that does tie into other stuff we've watched is the only thing the network was a little reticent about is that this was around the time of the rural purge, where there were like tons of these Western type shows. And they were like, we got to modernize. We got to stop making these things. And this was right at that point. But they were like, all right, we'll make one more. We'll try one more. We'll see how it goes. And then obviously it went great. It ran forever, 200 episodes. So it's good they didn't just completely purge the rural shows.
It probably would have failed. As I say, the kids grew up and became adults. But it might not have been, maybe not failed, but it probably wouldn't have been as successful if they had tried to keep those children young and they kept replacing the actors with younger kids. They didn't. The same actors that started out in that show went right through, right to the end.
Because, that's such also with trying to not only keep the actors young, but bringing in new young actors so that there'll always be a kid around. Such a disaster. I just had to look it up. Cousin Oliver. I was like, what is that from? It's from Cousin Oliver Syndrome, they even call it. It's the Brady Bunch. They brought in Cousin Oliver in the Brady Bunch. And then, that's just gone on for so many shows. It really never works. So, you can see why a TV producer would think that way. But it's a pretty good sign that a show's over when you start bringing in the new little precocious kid. It's like, just cancel the show, please. So anyway, we got, the made-for-TV movie pilot, which was directed by Michael Landon himself from 1974. So we'll start with that, and we'll pop in to yammer our thoughts, and then we'll move on all the way to the end and see how, not really the end, because there's all these TV specials and stuff, but the end of the proper television show, and we'll see how that turned out.
If I had a remembrance book, I would mark down how it was when we left our little house in the big woods to go west to Indian Territory. We had to go, Pa said, because so many people had come to live in the big woods. There wasn't enough game anymore for him to hunt, and he feared we might go hungry.
So if I was going to dip my toe into Little House, that was a pretty good one to pick because I feel like I got the entire freaking Frontier Prairie experience with that one. We went like the entire year with them. And then it turns out that isn't even, they had to pick up and move on at the end of that one too. So this really could have stood alone as its own little movie if there had not been a TV show.
Yeah, you're right. It covered everything. It covered the Indian issue, the fact that they were being moved onto reserves. It had the bushfires. It had the winter storms. It had hardships of doing the plowing and building the cabin and
That's it. I guess I was like, I don't know what I thought was going to happen when they're going along on a covered wagon, and that's all that they've got with them. I mean, I guess, yeah, obviously they don't have a house folded up in there or something. But when they get to the prairie, and he's just like, "Here it is, we're home," and I'm like, "What do you? There's nothing there." And then they literally have to chop down trees and build the house. I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, obviously, but I don't know. I just somehow thought like there must be something else you could do here.
And again, you wonder, like, where did they get the trees? Because when they first looked at that prairie land, there were a few hills and dales and that sort of thing. It wasn't absolutely flat, but there were no trees there.
Yeah.
And when they built the house, there were no trees around there. They had to go somewhere to go get the firewood, drag the logs in, hew them, cut them. Quite rough.
Yeah, a ridiculously harsh life. Just like, and I think that part back to back of the winter storms, and then they go to the fires in the spring. Yeah, it's just like this is awful. This is miserable.
But as you know, I commented right from the beginning, the poor little dog's trucking behind the wagon, and even when he gets to the river, they forget to put him in the back, and they think he's lost. And then at the very end, they're moving off to the brand new home. They haven't found it yet, but they're out looking. There he is, poor little guy, trucking along behind. Nobody picks him up and puts him in the wagon.
Isn't it interesting though how like you can change the focus of a story? Like even this same story, like if this had been a Disney movie, it could have been all about the dog. This could have been from the dog's perspective. I guess what I found weird about this is, I mean, obviously The Waltons is a similar feeling show, but The Waltons really did grab me more of like, oh, I want to watch more. It's in the back of my mind. One of these days I got to watch more Waltons. Where this show, for how harsh it is and how brutal the reality of the situation is, it felt weirdly airy. It definitely didn't have the down-to-earth feeling of the Waltons, and you can really tell Laura wrote the book that this is based on, because instead of being focused on the dog or even being focused on the parents, it's very focused on Laura. It's always like, oh, Laura's upset about something.
And
How
it
does
is
Laura
that way
feel?
all the way through the series. I think that this one seems so airy because it's a pilot. They tried putting so much into this thing.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, leaving the original homestead because there's too many people living there and there's not enough game for them to survive. And then they build a home on the prairie, and now they've got to pick up because the government has stepped in and has redrawn the lines for the reserve. So now for the Indian Reserve. So now those people have to move on again to some other place. Later, as the shows develop, you get more of a Walton type story. Each little TV show would be a separate storyline, whereas this covered everything.
Yeah, it was a whole. You know what I'm thinking? Because I was gonna say, next up we jump ahead 9 seasons, but I think maybe we should watch the first proper episode of the show, because I really am curious to see how it'll be different from this. Then we can jump ahead to the end.
I agree. I think that would be a good start, because this one, obviously, this is the selling machine here, and they've got to put everything in to sell, and they did. I mean, that thing is loaded. For 90 minutes, we covered a year, at least a year, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah. And but I mean, it is funny that that same thing at the start. How you were saying probably when I was a kid. Maybe I could feel the tone, that tonally this was maybe not a show for an 8-year-old kid or an 8-year-old boy, like maybe I wouldn't dig it. I like to think that, all these decades later, I'm a more mature, well-rounded person, but I still kind of felt that way. Like so many times the camera would just go linger on Laura's face. And I'm like, I don't care what Laura thinks about this situation. I barely know the other kids' names. They focused on Laura so much.
But it's Laura's story. Really, it is Laura's story.
Right. Well, yeah, it should have been Michael Landon's story. He's the one who had to build a whole house by himself. So yeah, that's the thing that I did start to get a little tired of Laura, because like whatever. I mean, nothing against her, but it's just that focus that you got to pick a focus. But I didn't feel that way with the Waltons. The Waltons felt like an ensemble. It felt like the family. This is so Laura. It's like, geez, Laura, come on, get out of here, Laura.
Well, maybe they should have called it Laura's story, because that's what it is. It really it surrounds her.
Little Laura on the Prairie. Co-starring hardworking dad, beleaguered mom, all these other. I was impressed too, though, with the youngest kid. She didn't really have much to do except be scared once in a while, but I kind of got the feeling like really all they were asking the littlest kid to do is like just don't look at the camera, but she didn't. I kept watching to see if she would.
That's twins that play that little girl.
Yeah.
So they probably filmed both of them or used one at one point and another at another point and picked the best. Yeah, because if you notice the credits at the beginning, it's Lindsay and Sydney. It doesn't say and Sydney. It has both names,
Right.
but they are twins.
Right.
Which is quite common in TV, early TV, for them to use twins for young children. But the other thing, the kids in it are good. They don't overact, although Laura emotes a little bit there, Melissa Gilbert. But I got to say, they certainly didn't pick a beautiful child, because sometimes they will. The child's just too beautiful to look at. This one, she's got her little teeth are crooked, and she's got the braids, and she looks like a standard 7-year-old.
Yeah, maybe that's too where, I'm just so weirdly unkind of me as a grown-ass man. But I was kind of thinking that too, of like, if we're going to constantly focus on Laura, you can tell Laura is the one who would write books about this, not the other ones, because Laura's the kind of persnickety, annoying little nerd one. So, it makes sense that she's the one who wrote the book on the prairie life. But let's watch the proper first episode. And then I suspect jumping to the end is just going to be like a silly thing to do. That's not even going to make sense to us. It's going to be such a jump. But I think it'll be interesting to see the pilot versus the actual proper show.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that'll be our next adventure.
If I had a remembrance book, I would surely write about the day we came to Plum Creek and first saw the house in the ground. I can remember Pa and Mr. Hanson, and how they walked and looked and talked, and how we wondered what they said.
So I'm glad that we watched that first proper episode instead of just the made-for-TV one that we watched before, because this makes a lot more sense to me now as a TV show. Like, I'm glad we watched the original one, but it was like, I don't know, is bleak the right word? Where like they really were in a little house on the prairie, a little tiny, weird, crappy house that he built himself. I mean, it was still nice, but not nice like in the TV show. Literally in the prairies, like in the middle of nowhere, no one's around, and just didn't make sense to me how that would be a TV show. This is like, okay, there we go. That feels like a TV show. So, I wouldn't say I liked this better, because again, the first one did feel maybe a little more like a more realistic portrayal of what this situation might be, but I liked the TV show better in the sense of like, oh, I could see watching this every week. The other one didn't make sense to me why you would watch that, or how you could watch that every week. It's too...
The other one had so much happening in it.
Right.
Leaving one place, traveling across, the hardships of traveling across the barrier. It was probably very realistic, whereas this one, they're nicely settled in. They've got the house with the glass in it, nice big house, beautiful house, actually. I mean, it wasn't a mansion or anything, but boys, if you had that for a camp, wow.
Yeah, if we had that house right now, it'd be pretty good. Yeah. Whereas, as in the other one, like the first house they made didn't even have windows. They had to build up to it. Yeah, you can feel the TV show of this one, where this house is way too nice out the gates, but for the sake of a TV show, it's all right.
Remember, I also said that each show would have its own episodes in it, which this one did. This one was very episodic for one plot line, pretty much. Getting introduced to the town, being accepted in the town, working a deal to plow the fields, and then he has an accident, so he can't meet the contract. But it's all very one story focused, whereas the other one, the original, the TV, the pilot for it, wow, that covered a whole lot of issues. It had about 7 or 8 things going on in it, whereas this one really only had one major story with a couple little sidetracks on it.
Yeah. So the pilot, like we were saying, probably is a more accurate version of Little House on the Prairie. Not that we've read the books, but it feels that way. But yeah, this feels more like a comforting TV show. Just even having the town and the town's people and the, characters you get to know, and like, even though it was pretty rough, he was still under a lot of stress. It wasn't rough like
and
here.
You get to love him and the family. They're just so They're just so nice.
Well-
I mean, anybody who works 2 jobs, 12 hours a day, then goes home and plows his field for another 5 or 6 hours, even in the dark, and he's just exhausted, and he never once really loses his temper.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just so nice.
That is one thing, yeah, that again, not having read the books, I got to assume is either TV magic, or even if the books portrayed him this way, it might have just been Laura being kind to her dad, because there's no effing way. There's no way you work 6 hours for one guy in the blazing heat, 6 hours for the other guy, then plow your fields for 4 or 5 hours at home, then break your ribs without at some point saying, "You kids, get the hell out of here. Leave me alone." Like, that's going to happen at least once, probably once a day.
But his biggest sin is that he went to work and didn't say goodbye to his children.
Yeah.
And he's got the big guilt complex when he comes home, so he has to go up and apologize to them. And I'm saying, apologize? The man's working his arse off. And meanwhile, what are they doing? And then you find out that the wife, Carolyn, when he has his accident, is out there and she's doing the fields anyway. Well, why wasn't she doing the fields when he was working the 2 jobs?
I do wonder if the real Laura Ingalls, like maybe she was a bit of a daddy's girl, of just like, oh, my dad was so great. Meanwhile, my mom was giving my dad shit for not going to church. F her. Like, she's always the annoying one.
She probably would never say that about her mother either, but there's no question she's a daddy's girl.
And I did notice too, as far as the kindness, the overall. I mean, the whole, what was the episode called? A Harvest of Friendship or something? Very corny name. But I did notice that the guy, he makes this deal with a dude, because he obviously doesn't have a lot of collateral. He's new in town and stuff. So he makes this chattel deal of, if he doesn't get all the work done in 3 weeks, he's got to give away his oxen. And it was one of those like shades of gray where the guy he does the deal with, like he did. Michael Landon did break his ribs and he wasn't going to finish the work, but the guy gives him no leeway at all. Like, I'm going to come take your cattle. But I noticed that guy was a guest star this episode, and that makes sense, because you can't have that guy hanging around the town. He's too evil. He's too mean. We don't want to see him next week. So I assume he doesn't come back.
But even Mrs. Olson, the storekeeper, as the series goes on, you find that she's really such a snob, and she's really hateful about everybody. And you get that impression when she first starts. But I'm watching that thinking, he goes in, he's just new to town. He wants to run a line of credit, and the husband is probably going to do it because he's a soft touch. But she says no. And she explains why, and it's a good reason. She says, I've got a drawer full of people who came and ran credit, and then they picked up in the night and left. Well, they can't run a business like that. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I think she's perfectly reasonable here. But I could see people watching that, especially if you were a kid, thinking, that old bad acts like, oh, she's just hateful. And she does turn out to be that way as the show progresses. But her first introduction there, oh yeah, you get so, I don't like her. She wouldn't give him credit. Well, I can, as an adult running my own business, yeah, I agree with her.
Yeah.
Especially when she says she's got a drawer full of people who have left them hanging high and dry. And they got to run a store. How are they going to buy their supplies if they're giving credit to everybody?
One thing I did like a lot more about this is, maybe this was just one of those tweaks that they made from the pilot, is, I was complaining about how the pilot was too focused on Laura. Everything was through her perspective. And what does Laura think about this? And it's like, the entire county's on fire. Who cares what Laura thinks about this? This show did that way less. Maybe the series in general is less this way, because like, she's still somewhat the focal point in the sense that she does the occasional little voiceovers and stuff. But this one focused on Michael Landon when it was appropriate to focus on him. That's what was killing me about the pilot, is like, he's going through all this. He built their whole house, and we're focused on Laura.
We did see in the pilot, too, when they were building that house and they were building up their little farm at the first house. Yeah, the wife was really, really involved. She was hauling the logs and she was sawing the logs. This time she really didn't do anything until he fell and hurt himself, and then she has to take the oxen into the fields. Really, up to that point, she's just kind of pussyfooting around the house, looking kind of pretty and cooking the meals. And
I guess they did kind of deal with that a bit, because after Charles breaks his ribs, he's still telling his wife not to go do work. So he like doesn't want her to do farm work. So I don't know, maybe it's a weird pride thing with him of like, I can't let my wife do the work.
I know, but really, those people that established the West, and unless they were extremely wealthy and could hire people to do stuff, I'm sure the wives worked right along with their husbands in establishing those.
Yeah.
They didn't get paid for it. They probably didn't get any recognition for it. But they were hauling water, from the creeks and sawing the logs, chopping the wood for the fireplaces. They were doing all kinds of stuff. But here you didn't get, I oftentimes kept thinking, well, why isn't she doing some of this stuff? Heck, why aren't those kids doing things? I mean, maybe they couldn't go out and manage the oxen in the fields, but there must have been something they could do. Heck, cook the meals.
Yeah, because they're not even going to school yet. They're literally doing nothing.
Hanging around the house.
But yeah, I mean, overall, though, I did like this. I mean, I still feel like in that pantheon of shows like this, like I prefer the Waltons, I prefer Bonanza, but I could see watching this show. It's like I understand it a lot better now, seeing the proper show than.
It's a very heartwarming show. Everybody, at the end of the show, there may be trials and tribulations throughout, but everybody at the end of the show, with the exception of that Irish guy who was making people sign contracts and all that stuff, everybody was just wonderful and understanding. I mean, if you were growing up in the far west, you'd want to live in a place like that.
Right.
Where everybody would come to your aid.
So now should we jump to the very end? This is going to be interesting. So that was season 1, episode 1. All the way to the end is season 9, episode 22.
Well, yes, let's see how those people develop and if they really still are sweet and angelic or if they've become hardened.
Well, extra weird, I almost thought maybe I should get the end of season 8 because that's when Michael Landon left, see his departure. But then I thought, let's just go all the way to the end because that seems extra weird. Like it really does, it's hard to visualize how this show could even work without him. And apparently it didn't because after a year after he left, they finally wrapped it up. So yeah, that's our basic overview of Little House. This is just a bonus thing. Now as a weird bonus, let's just jump to the end and watch the very last episode. Oh, except for the TV movies and reunion shows and blah, blah, blah. But this is the end of the official series.
Beautiful day. Yes, I can see that. Well, I don't know how you can read in the stagecoach. Doesn't upset your stomach? Only when strangers interrupt me.
So I guess there's no need to really dwell on that. It was just a weird thing to do, to jump to the end, and kind of cool to see like, oh, look at that, some people that are grown up now, and oh, the town's grown up and whatever. But that definitely at that point is a show without a rudder. It's just kind of existing, and it's like, yeah, I can see why they canceled it. Like, what's even going on in the show anymore,
I'm surprised it's the last show, though. Like, I thought that they'd finish off. The only person who moved away was this young boy who met up with his father. He left, but there are still new characters introduced, like the fellow writer there at the end.
Right.
It almost sounds like the show should go on, and he's going to be in a part of it.
Well, I think that's a good example, though, of how this show is definitely over. It seems clear they didn't know this was going to be the last one, but that was their plan for the future. The persnickety know-it-all who moves into town, that's going to save the show. Are you high? Because, he wasn't just a one-episode thing. He was clearly going to hang around. And, wow, if I wasn't, super-duper influenced to watch the early seasons, there's a 0% chance I would watch that show. How it is at the end, it's just like, oh, what is this show? Even seeing the neighbor guy from the pilot, I was like, oh, he was delightful, I'm glad he's back. But he was like almost comic relief in the pilot. In this, oh my god, he's got the deaf boy that he took in, and the real dad's back, and it's just drama. And then you were catching me up on like the plots you remembered throughout the years of so-and-so goes blind and so-and-so burned to death holding a baby and a fire and blah, blah, blah. Everything is just awful. It's like a combination of terrible, dramatic things happening and also just fluffy nothingness.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything special in this show, in this last show, that it could have been any TV show.
Yeah, it really is. I know I mentioned this at the very start of That 70s show. Again, a weird comparison, but a show that kept going after the main actors left. And it really is like, I feel like it's probably just the same in any era throughout time. Anytime you have a TV show that's run for a long time and then the main person leaves, and yet just seeing what they try to do in like that 70s show, it was Randy, new kid Randy, who shows up. And it's like, we lost Eric and Kelso for this jerk? He sucks. And it's very similar here. It's like, we lost Michael Landon for this weird persnickety writer? This guy sucks too.
Well, and the other thing is, this show was not through the eyes of Laura. We saw very little of Laura in this, actually. It was through the eyes of a lot of other characters, like mostly, Mr. What's his name? Edwards? Is that his name? The neighbor, the friendly neighbor from way, way back. A lot of it was through his eyes. A lot of it is through the new writer type that's been introduced, Mrs. Olson, through her eyes. Very little of it through Laura. She just kind of grew up to be a beautiful girl, but she's just kind of running the hotel.
And I mean, again, this is season 9. Like, there's no shame in a show ending at this point. It had a good run. It seems like everything went fine. If there is shame to be had, it's, again, what every American show does. You should have ended last season when Michael Landon left.
And besides that, they're on the verge of the 20th century. We see a lot of modern, beautiful homes that they live in. I mean, it's a beautiful mansion that is now this hotel. The town has developed, so now it's got a restaurant. It's got all these other amenities. So the whole premise of the hardships of the prairie are kind of moving on, moving past. They're over.
Yeah, I thought an interesting sort of example of that is the persnickety writer. His whole deal is he's been to China, he's been to England, he's met the Queen, he knows how to speak Chinese to the guy at the Chinese laundry, and the guy at the Chinese laundry is not even... You think they would have had a little chin wag of like, how the hell did you learn Chinese? But now he just... Anyway, when that guy goes to the general store with his order for exotic spices, they had them all. It's like, what do you mean you have them all? Like, yeah, this is just a different scenario now. This is a whole different thing. So yeah, I think it seemed like a plenty good time. But yeah, that is very much, though, the feeling I got is that they didn't know that was the last one, because that's totally setting up for another season.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely. The way that show ended, you'd expect to tune in next week.
Except not interesting. Like, there's nothing actually interesting going to happen next season. And maybe the executives also thought that. They're like, really? Really, guys? This is your setup? This is your setup for season 10? Cancel this show. So I would have done the same. So anyway, there we go, though. There's our brief journey through Little House. And the early shows in particular, I'm glad I finally got to see them because, they're not bad. They're kind of interesting and kind of cool. But I don't know if there's any show, really, that was still good by season 9. Even The Simpsons, my favorite show of all time, by season 9, getting pretty bad. So
The same thing, like you've mentioned the Waltons a couple of times as we're discussing the show here. The same thing happened with the Waltons. When they were the family with the 6 or 7 children, however many they had, they were those kids were excellent. But that show ended at the end of World War II, I think it is, and everybody is grown up, and it's not the same. Like, I find those shows are very, very poor.
Well, didn't we, because we did the same thing with the Waltons, wasn't John Boy played by a different actor?
Yeah, John Boy changed actors, and Richard Thomas, you can't do it.
Yeah.
The new guy just didn't quite fit the bill. But as you see those people as grown-ups, it's not the same as when they're kids, because there's not that innocence of childhood and learning from your mistakes and making dumb kid mistakes, because they're grown up now.
And I mean, yeah, in the larger sense, it is the same as it ever was, of just British shows, generally get in and get out while they're still good. Canadian shows don't usually run for a long time, but I feel like that's a different scenario. We just can't keep a show afloat. But America, yeah, like they'll just run it into the ground and then run it for 3 years after that. And that's what happened here as well.